Hello, friends and neighbors. Welcome to our Writer's Lab number 8. This month, we're going to be talking about dramatic irony. And I'm creating this video so that you can just listen to it as you go about your day. And I'll be looking a little off center for anybody that watches the video. So apologies, my eye contact won't be that great. But nevertheless, we're going to dig into it. Writer's Lab number 8, dramatic irony. I'll start with the statement, every story needs a strong hook. Typically, when we talk about a hook, we're talking about a special element that separates your story from other similar stories out there. A differentiator that makes your story stand out or feel special among a sea of other similar sounding concepts. And this can be addressed in several different ways, with a high concept or an innovative story engine or some other adjacent device or strategy. But for this month's lab, I want to focus on a particular attribute that can help create any one of those things, if not all of them. So this month's Writer's Lab is on the subject of dramatic irony and, when effectively deployed, how it can both elevate and differentiate your story idea. Specifically, I'm going to show you how to create an ironic hook or an ironic premise, same thing, different names, using a lot of dramatic irony. I like to say that dramatic irony is the bacon bits of storytelling, and that if you sprinkle a little dramatic irony on anything, it gets better. And at the core of every great differentiating hook, there is a healthy dose of dramatic irony. I want to repeat that because it's so incredibly important. At the core of every great differentiating hook, there is a healthy dose of dramatic irony. Understand that there are literally thousands and thousands of emerging screenwriters out there trying to break into this industry. And even if you think your ideas are special and unique, they probably aren't. There are very likely dozens, if not hundreds, of similar concepts already out there or being written right now. So, then how do you make your concept stand out? Well, a really cool title can help draw attention, but that can't make up for a flat screenplay. So it's always a good strategy to write screenplays using an effective balance between the old and the new, the familiar and the unique. Because as we talk about a lot here in Buzztown, what Hollywood ultimately wants is the same but different. And this can be a tough ask, especially for newer screenwriters, but you need to be especially sensitive to this. Screenwriting is newish for many of you, and creating your own stories may seem artificially exciting. By that I mean that you might be excited by your ideas, but that doesn't mean anybody else will be. And they need to be. You must intrigue and excite your audience. So you need to dig deep and find the perspective to recognize the difference between fresh material and material that is merely a retread or a retelling of something that you personally like and admire, but something that ultimately already exists. Say you're writing a drama. What makes your drama unique? What makes it stand out from all other dramas? Why would anyone buy your unremarkable and generic feeling screenplay? Why would anyone invest money to produce it? And why would anyone pay their hard-earned money to go see it? What you write might even be pretty good, but pretty good is not good enough. Your work needs to be outstanding. It needs to be innovative. It needs to be effective, and it needs to feel special. So to write something truly special, you need what the industry refers to as a hook. So if it's true that your high concept premise is a problem that your screenplay will work towards solving, then the hook is a unique aspect of the problem which suggests intriguing possibilities. It is a special circumstance surrounding the problem that raises the stakes and increases our interest. That last bit was a quote from James Bonnet, who works for thewriterstore.com. And in an article I stole that from, he also shares these examples to try to illustrate what we're talking about. So, an ironic premise might be, a volcano erupts not in the desert, but in the middle of a busy city. Or another one is, a baby is left on the doorstep not of a kindly nanny, but of 3 bachelors. Or, star-crossed lovers meet not at a church social, but on the Titanic. And the last one, a woman is kidnapped, but instead of her husband paying the ransom, he uses the money to put a bounty on the heads of the kidnappers. So those examples are all hooks, but more importantly, they are all ironic premises. Consider that last example. How great is that? There have been hundreds and hundreds of ransom films made, but by adding that very simple and easy to understand twist to the central premise, we get to enjoy a completely unique spin on that type of story. Something very familiar is now exciting and new. That is the magic of a great ironic hook. It's a unique difficulty which makes the threat more dangerous and intriguing. It's the same, but different. So, to create an ironic premise, aka an ironic hook. If you're having trouble understanding how to go about creating an ironic premise, then here's a very simple exercise. I want you to create a very short sentence that is divided into two halves. The first half represents your protagonist's belief in a falsehood, and the second half represents the ironic truth. And again, this sentence must be very short, 10 words or as close to that number as possible. Less is better. And you should force yourself to create something very simple, very strong. Here's a few fresh examples of exactly what I'm talking about here. A woman runs away but cannot escape herself. 8 words. Another is, a woman forfeits her own life avenging another's. That's also 8 words. A third one is, a man chooses to protect something sent to kill him. 10 words. And lastly, a lawyer who lies for a living can't lie for an entire day. That's basically the hook for Jim Carrey's movie Liar Liar. That's 12 words. And let's take a closer look at each one of those examples. So the first one was, a woman runs away but cannot escape herself. In this example, we see a woman who is trying to escape her problems by running away, and who is also ignorant of the fact that she is the source of all of her problems, that running away will solve nothing. She blames everyone around her for all of her hardships when in fact she needs to look inward and admit that she is her own worst enemy. The second example was, a woman forfeits her own life avenging another's. Here, a woman loses someone close to her by way of a horrible murder, but she becomes so focused on revenge and serving her idea of justice that she puts her own life in serious danger, somehow justifying one tragic death with another, her own. The third example was, a man chooses to protect something sent to kill him. Here, a man takes a stand and decides to fight to protect something or someone that secretly wants to kill him. It's a moral choice to stand and fight for this person or thing that he thinks cannot fight for themselves. He thinks he's made a noble choice, but his sanctimonious defiance has blinded him to the fact that he's invited a deadly threat inside his own defenses. He's made enemies of his allies and allies of his enemies. And the last one, based on Jim Carrey's Liar Liar, a lawyer who lies for a living cannot lie for an entire day. So in that movie, Carrey plays a manipulative lawyer who has made a living out of lying. But when the biggest cases in his career gets dropped in his lap, a magic wish from his son makes it impossible for him to lie on the very day the case goes to court. Carrey's character tries hard as he can to lie and manipulate the situation, but he can't. And in the end, he's forced to tell the truth, which is the key to him becoming a better person. All of these characters are looking outward, distracted by a belief in a falsehood when they should be looking inward within themselves to discover the truth. That is the power of dramatic irony. It's easy for anyone, almost instantly, to see the story clearly and to identify the conflict and the opportunities for dramatic twists and turns. We, the audience, know things that the protagonist doesn't, and we wonder what will happen when they finally realize their ignorant and dangerous mistake. So, how an ironic hook also helps structure your screenplay. So this is very simple recipe for an ironic hook or an ironic premise is structured this way: 2 halves divided in the middle and each half revealing very different information, because it mirrors the simplest structural elements of a screenplay. All stories are about transformation. Your hero starts the story in one state and becomes permanently transformed by the adventure, ending the adventure in a much different place. They become fully aware and, armed with the truth, transform into the fully realized hero that they were destined to be. In simple terms, for the first half of a screenplay, the protagonist typically believes in a falsehood or somehow misunderstands the reality of this situation, and they set off in pursuit of the wrong thing. They have inappropriate or misinformed goals. But at the halfway point, new information is revealed, and the protag then uses that new information to choose new, more appropriate goals and sets out in a new direction to achieve them. So using the ironic hook or ironic premise, you have critical information that the hero does not when they begin the adventure. You know the ironic truth, so your ironic hook will help you identify what the dramatic twist or realization will be at the halfway mark in your story that reveals what the central conflict actually is and sends the story and your hero off in a new and freshly exciting direction. Knowing this fact and knowing the truth about your hero's situation, you now know what will be revealed at the halfway point. And using our 3 examples, the midpoint turns for each of them would be, in that first one, the woman realizes that no amount of running will help because she is the source of all of her pain and suffering. In the second example, the woman realizes that her pursuit of justice is not justified or noble and will lead ultimately to her own death. In the third, the man realizes the thing that he is risking his life to protect is actually trying to kill him. And in the last, the lawyer realizes that lying will not work and that he must solve his problems with the truth. This dramatic and often traumatic reveal of critical information represents a major milestone in your story and your protagonist's character arc. It's a major and sudden shift in the story that represents fresh wind for the sails of your screenplay, and once that reveal takes place at the midpoint and your protagonist shifts from believing in the falsehood to knowing the ironic truth, you can take the story in a new and even more dramatic direction because you've just unlocked a ton of new conflict for your hero, both internal and external. So, in summary, not only will a great ironic hook, ironic premise make your story much more fascinating and complex, but it will also become a very important part of the blueprint of your screenplay itself. This simple sentence contains basic structural information about your screenplay's first half, midpoint, and second half. I love composing these simple ironic hooks and hope you find that fun too. More importantly, I hope you can see how one simple sentence like this can make your movie idea much more fascinating and literally much easier to write by giving your protagonist a personal and internal puzzle to solve while simultaneously overcoming difficult external obstacles. So I hope you'll play around with it. Try to compose your own 10-word ironic premise sentences. Try out a few, and then you'll come to the meeting on Wednesday and Friday, and or both if you like, if you've got the time, and share them with everybody, and then we can kick around our thoughts and insights into how you might be able to implement them into your work, or just what you learned along the way while you played with it. So that's this month's Writer's Lab. I hope it's interesting, and I hope to see you all on Wednesday and or Friday. Thanks, everybody. Cheers.